We just got something really big. A bunch of Skyrim's largest mod projects got together and showed off a ton of their recent progress. This is hours of gameplay as well as a ton of updates around Skyrim's largest upcoming mods. And all of this benefiting the Cancer Research Institute as a part of Creation ModCon 2025, which spanned 2 days and lots of hours, so maybe you want a condensed recap of that event. And what is easily the most interesting upcoming mod for Skyrim, we have Skyblivion, this being a full-on remake of Oblivion in Skyrim's engine, pretty similar to what Bethesda just released themselves. And the big thing to keep in mind with Skyblivion is it's coming out this year, and if you look at the calendar, that means it's coming out very soon. In this most recent showcase, we get a look at the first 15 minutes of the experience with Skyblivion.
Stay put, prisoner.
Let me see your face. You are the one from my dreams.
And a really good look at how Skyblivion is taking things even further than Oblivion Remastered did. That one was a remaster, this is really a remake. And as such, Skyblivion looks stunning. The lighting and visuals were upgraded compared to Skyrim. But they also mentioned things like improved character models with textures and hair specifically being improved, but certain characters also had more specific passes. So they're going to look even better in Skyrim's engine. The most recent demo takes us through the now very familiar intro sequence. Of course, many of us just doing this a few months ago in Oblivion Remastered. During this, we get a preview of the beautifully remade Mythic Dawn armor. This had to be redone along with all of the other items from Oblivion, but of course we just saw all of this. We saw a remaster in Unreal Engine 5, but thankfully the visuals alone aren't what's going to hook you with Skyblivion. Certain things are just getting overhauled, like lockpicking. It's now going to use a mix of Oblivion and ESO's lockpicking in one, so it'll be a bit less tedious than the original Oblivion lockpicking that so many people have been struggling with as of late, and this new lockpicking will be equally functional whether you're using a keyboard and mouse or a controller. One of the biggest things you'll feel is dungeons are getting a bit of an overhaul with Skyblivion. During the stream, the team describes working to remake Skyblivion dungeons in a bit more of a Skyrim fashion, something we just didn't have happen with Oblivion Remastered. The dungeons were exactly the same. So Skyblivion's dungeons will maintain the look and feel, and of course all of the lore within, but there'll be other things like more loot appearing within them overall. Some of the boss fights are going to be more prevalent in these dungeons, and they're even implementing Skyrim's iconic loop back, so you can circle back to the start of the dungeon easily and quickly after reaching the end of it. Right now in Oblivion, of course, you have to walk back through the entire dungeon, and in Skyblivion, dungeons exist as a part of the surrounding world. You can see some of that nearby area from within the dungeon, and even occasionally hear nearby birds chirping. There's going to be new environmental storytelling as a part of this mod. A variety of goblin cave paintings were added near goblin-occupied areas, these making sense with all of the goblin clans in the game. The load screens look really cool. They have these new interactive art, and these are going to feature a mix of both new and old tooltips, some just being from Oblivion originally, but then some others highlighting Skyblivion specific systems that were added for the mod. And even several of the menus were remade to just look better. But also when it comes to class selection specifically, things are much clearer now. You can more easily see how each class will impact your character build, a really nice modernization. And you can start to see how the Skyblivion experience will be pretty distinct compared to Oblivion Remastered. Even in just this 15-minute demo, you can see how this is not only going to be an upgraded visual take on Oblivion as a remake, but Skyblivion will be more of a true expansion and modernization in many ways as well. But perhaps the area that got the most pronounced overhaul that we also just recently got a look at is Anvil. Anvil will be really unique in Skyblivion as it was fully remade based off Oblivion's original concept art, rather than what we have in game right now. So now Anvil will look far more like a trading hub, and in game it makes Anvil feel a lot larger and more interesting. And some of this will be practical intrigue. There's going to be several new stores to shop at, and overall you can see how this will be a very fun aspect of this mod. A lot of Skyblivion is going to feel exactly the same. It's just Oblivion with a fresh coat of paint as well as a couple of new background mechanics. And of course, running on a much more modern engine. But also throughout this experience, you'll consistently see some new and custom content, a unique take on something familiar. And with the release of Skyblivion just around the corner, now is definitely the time to get hyped. But then the mod to really steal the show for me in 2025, as sister project of Skyblivion, we do have Skywind, recreating Morrowind in Skyrim's engine, and this looks absolutely fantastic. As someone who just missed Morrowind entirely, this is one of my most anticipated mods right now. I mean, even just look here at Ebonheart. This is a pretty insane visual and quality upgrade, and it's where the most recent Skywind demo does begin. Creation ModCon 2025 was raising money for the Cancer Research Institute, like I mentioned before, and during this, they would show showcase various Skywind locations as donation goals, with viewers voting on which location they wanted to see most. That part of the stream of course ended, but you can still donate if you're interested. I'll have links to the Cancer Research Institute down below. The first location shown was Azura's Shrine, featuring the spikes, towers, and overall more detailed location compared to what was originally in Morrowind. The dev team mentioned how making the shrine feel intertwined into the environment is a core of their level design approach, and I think they're doing a great job at this. This looks freaking fantastic. Balmora overall got some larger changes though, most obviously in the visual fidelity. Even details like the Mages Guild window are now overhauled and really define the city. And while the city itself is laid out in almost the exact same way, a ton of detail has been added over what we had in Morrowind. There's going to be new NPC stalls as well as other NPCs actually doing things in Balmora now, so things will feel lived in beyond some of the major guilds and typical questing. And this will be a functional expansion as well. Balmora is technically larger as a ton of tiny houses with beds have been added for all of the NPCs that feature schedules now, something that was just lacking from Morrowind originally. Peligad is unique in a unique way. This location should look pretty familiar. It's traditional Imperial architecture, which we see a ton of. This feels like a fairly familiar Skyrim location, but it is very unique in Morrowind. This location looks great, things are very familiar, but the surrounding vegetation in particular does maintain that unique feel, and when actually playing through Skywind, this will be one of the most unique forts you do encounter. Dagon Fell is of course the most northern location, and it's going to be filled with Nords. This looks great, even showcasing some of the updated weathers for the mod, but while here we can also speak to Met and check out some of Skywind's updated dialogue.
That outfit, Outlander. You must be doing well for yourself. Can I help you?
So if you couldn't tell, that was actually huge. Originally in Morrowind, lots of the random NPCs had no voice acting at all, but that's changing with Skywind. These NPCs will now have voice actors and voice lines, and while yeah, that seems insanely ambitious, they actually just crossed a major milestone with this, as every NPC now has a voice actor cast for it. Butzeron is my personal favorite from the Skywind showcase, being the prettiest of the towns featured. And once again, you could really just see the detail upgrades here. The devs are just able to include way more thanks to Skyrim's upgraded engine. And a really cool moment from the stream, they show off Zik's test cell, this just being a dev room with all the items and even texture sets that this specific dev created. But this does give you a very clear look at the sheer amount of individual effort going into this project. We're just looking at the efforts of one single developer. Throughout this video, you're seeing the work of hundreds to thousands of different people. That is a ton of 3D and other work being done totally for free. Ghostgate acts as the main gateway through Ghost Fence, so you're going to go here to enter or exit, and for Skywind it's getting some epic upgrade. The visuals of course look fantastic, but they're also implementing custom-made murals. This will only appear here in Ghost Gate, showing the tribunals fighting against the ash creatures. And going to one of the Daedric ruins, they show off some of the new weather effects they've implemented for the mod. And you've been hearing me say it throughout this video, but Skywind looks great. That really was why it stole my spot as being my most anticipated upcoming mod and favorite of CMC 2025. Because this is just vanilla Skyrim, and as the dev team says, they feel like they've broken new ground with the game and its engine. Because funny enough to my eyes, Morrowind remade in Skyrim's engine is really the best Skyrim's engine has ever looked to me. Some of these scenes are simply stunning, and if you are a fan of Morrowind and worried about modernizations, don't. Skywind is not only re-implementing old content like water walking you could see here, but they've even overhauled the visuals for casting some of these spells. And they're also shipping this with a HUDless mode, as you can see in the background, and during this there'll be no compass, just like how it worked in Morrowind, and the same exact will be true for quest markers. So whether you're somebody just going into Skywind and Morrowind for the very first time, having never experienced either, or somebody who has loved Morrowind and just looking for something a bit more modern, it seems like Skywind's really offering the best of both worlds, and again, looks absolutely fantastic. But next up at Creation ModCon, we got something monumental, a near complete look at Tamriel. That thanks to Beyond Skyrim, a collection of projects working to recreate the entire province of Tamriel at the time of Skyrim, conceptually being one of the most interesting of these upcoming mods, especially with the scale of this project. The most prominent of the Beyond Skyrim projects is Cyrodiil, re-experiencing the same locations of Oblivion, but now quite a bit later. As of course, there's a 200-year gap between the events of Oblivion and now us returning to Cyrodiil at the time of Skyrim. Their most recent demo taking us to the Gold Coast side of Cyrodiil, just outside of Anvil. They picked up a dog companion on the way, and while we do get a nice look at some of the general Gold Coast scenery as well as creatures you can find, we eventually arrive at Brina, and you can start to see why this mod's going to be a really special experience. If If you've been playing Oblivion Remastered, you probably remember Brina Cross Inn, a relatively simple location where you get some blunt training. But now beyond Skyrim, hundreds of years have passed, so Brina Cross Inn has grown into the town of Brina, now featuring several NPCs as well as several buildings around. The showcase does go on to pick up a new quest here to help this guy get a deed to his manor, fighting through some of the remade enemies, and eventually you can arrive at the custom estate, which has now been taken over by a goblin warlord. But some of the changes are a bit more unique with Beyond Skyrim Cyrodiil. It's a really fun area as a major thing happened with the closing of the Oblivion gates. So you can see some major changes here. Many of the Illiac ruins have now been inhabited once again, this actually being some of the nearby Argonians who moved here during a recent crisis. And the mod has been making major progress. The team describes how all of the writing for Leyawind is also complete, and how other big announcements are on the way. But in stark contrast, we have Beyond Skyrim Roscrea, which will take you to the Roscrean Isles just a bit away from Skyrim, into a land once home to many riches, but now home to ancient cities and secrets to uncover. The Roscrea preview here starts with a great showcase of the various aspects of level design work already done. We can see the icy yet unique landscapes, cities and towns nestled within them, and even some of the inhabitants of Roscrea. Many of the cities now have their people, the NPCs have been implemented, and the current work is on voicing them. The team has a pretty unique challenge due to these voices being unique. They're island people in a relatively snowy and mountainous land. Crane Shore is the capital of Roscrea, and at this point has nearly all of its quests completed. The main story of this experience will take you all around and across this island, but it seems like Crane Shore will really act as the anchor, as the hub for a lot of that questing, which does look absolutely stunning. On day 2 of the ModCon, they did a walkabout of all of Beyond Skyrim, even occasionally showing you the transition from one region to the next, a true interconnected Tamriel. And during this, we got a really nice ground level view of Crane Shore. This will be where we arrive as we're traveling to Roscrea. The city itself is again gorgeous. It does have a nice unique feel compared to Skyrim, and a big part of that is the East Empire Company influence. They own Crane Shore about as much as the Empire does, having been the primary funding behind Crane Shore's most recent rebuilding. And of course, you'll do several quests for the East Empire Company here. We do get a preview of one quest, discovering a former Thalmor agent who's now hiding out in Crane Shore. Via the quest, we get a ground level view of the Roscrean terrain. It's pretty similar to Skyrim, but the team has done a really great job at giving things a distinct feel. You could easily see how they could fall into that trap of everything just feeling kind of samey, or wanting to reuse some of those already available assets. You can especially feel this in this cave. A fight eventually breaks out, and you get a really nice backstory of what this Thalmor was doing during the war. A bit later on in the demo, as we walk past a different settlement, you could really see the custom kits being used, as things genuinely do feel distinct here. They take on some bandits, and the mist rolls in with the overgrown landscape. The environments do a really great job at capturing a certain feel, and personally it's one I'd like to visit. And now parts of the team are even going back to update certain assets to make those locations feel even more unique. There really is a major effort to keep things distinct from Skyrim. But then we do have Argonia. Beyond Skyrim Argonia didn't get a full-on feature in the ModCon, but did pop up during the walkabout. One short boat ride away from Roscrea and you'll arrive in Varicta, now a standalone town, but originally part of Leyawind, and you can immediately see the similarities. Argonia is made up of plenty of marshes and swamps, giving it a very distinct feel and even unique living, as you could find local farms all around. And Argonia's unique landscapes will even come with a variety of new creatures. Snails can be found all over, and honestly I think they look pretty funny in a good way, but also crocodiles as an even more threatening encounter, but also something unique with some of the greener locales that Beyond Skyrim is going to, like with Argonia. The enhancements from Skyrim Special Edition have enabled even more foliage, and as a result we get some seriously epic visuals now. These are things that weren't necessarily tapped into for Skyrim Special Edition directly, but now can be tapped into with some of the new world space being made. And speaking of new world space, we also have Beyond Skyrim Valenwood. This being quite the contrast in just how different it is compared to Skyrim, which largely means everything needs to be custom made here. Nearly all of what you're seeing in this gameplay is totally custom for this mod. You can't just reuse stuff from Skyrim because of how different things are. During the showcase, we get a look at the settlement of Bonmar, followers of the god of thievery. Looking around here, you can see the plethora of custom assets in use. Even the base building materials for structures or other items are custom and pretty distinct to Skyrim, with the townsfolk here recently having fallen on hard times and now divided. They're law followers generally, but now have to rely on thievery to help them out of hardship as the local mine approaches exhaustion. dungeon. The mine itself features a totally distinct design compared to Skyrim, and it's not just making things look a bit different than Skyrim, there's actually lore and a feel that's different. These mines can't go quite as deep as some of the mines you'll find in other areas of Tamriel because they can't rely on wood from trees. This results in some really cool custom dungeon work, which has been some of my favorite parts of these mods. Things feel familiar, but you can see how some of these teams are getting really creative with the region and what's available to them in the nearby region. Valenwood is definitely one of the newer Beyond Skyrim projects, but things have been picking up rapidly, and the team now reports that they've doubled asset output compared to last year. During the showcase, they show off some of the custom jewelry made, but even just the surrounding objects craft a very foreign feel. Even the gold here isn't gold, but custom altar sandcars that are held together with strings instead of coin purses. And chests feature details from this unique biome. At this point, they have nearly all of the main weapon sets completed for the mod, including a ton of bows. Later in the showcase, we could see the horn mace in use as we take on some bandits in custom armors using stone weapons. Another cool detail in this dungeon is how these bandits are utilizing a mix of items, mostly bone and leather, but occasionally some wood things like barrels that they've traded for from other provinces. Wood just overall has a very different role in the society and a very different value, and you see that reflected in the world. And one of the really cool opportunities when visiting new provinces is writing new lore, such as with the wood orcs of Valenwood. This group considers the use of wood sacrilegious, and even among some of these various groups with unique cultures and identities in Valenwood, they're going to feature unique shields that differentiate them. But next up is Beyond Skyrim Morrowind, taking us back to the familiar landscapes of Morrowind, but now with a far updated look to Skyrim's engine, and also 200 years have gone by. The Morrowind project is an exciting one as they're working on a standalone release of the New North. You can see some of this in the background now. And this does give great views of how much Morrowind was remade. For lots of us who haven't played Morrowind, this will be a really cool and unique look at a somewhat familiar place, and likely inspire tons of people to go back and play the original, or maybe even another remade version. This New North pre-release will have 720 cells of playable area, including water, and that's going to roughly be the size of Whiterun's Hold. And as we do see part of during this stream, this includes a variety of tombs, caves, and even more unique dungeons you'll be able to explore. It will not strictly be the same Morrowind landscape here, quite a bit of time has gone by, and there is a dozen settlements to explore during this pre-release segment, which you'll be going over to with 27 new quests implemented for this experience, and final edits on the questline are done at this point. And we even get to see some of these quests in the most recent demo, as here we're helping a new archaeological society locate a cup made from a Falmer skull. We recently helped them re-establish their funding, and this is one of the first expeditions we're getting to do for them. This takes us to Ebonshield Tower, a vital trade connection between the western and eastern ends of the New North that was established by the Empire in the years since Morrowind. From Ebonshield, a local allows us to use their skiff, taking us onto another fishing island, and the devs describe a major milestone. The project just completed their last essential 3D asset for the New North, so the release should be well fleshed out with creatures and items, as now people can move on to more fun custom things. And with much of the main quest writing complete, writers are now working on some fun random encounters. This tower is Voss, and highlighting a major milestone as the final dungeon that needed to be implemented into the New North world space. At this point, all interiors and exteriors had a first pass completed, with many now on the polishing phase or having moved on to other things. And after working up through this tower, we can eventually find the very Falmer Cup, and the environment here is just stunning. You could really see the plethora of custom and new assets on display. But almost similar to Skyblivion, this is another one that you can get excited for. Beyond Skyrim Morrowind is coming relatively soon. It still does have quite a bit of dev time ahead of it, while you're not seeing it this year, but they're moving on to the final stages of polishing and getting all of those assets included. But for another project that has the potential to become incredibly interesting in the next couple of years, we do have Beyond Skyrim Illiac Bay. Many fans speculate that the next Elder Scrolls game, The Elder Scrolls 6, will take place in High Rock and Hammerfell. Illiac Bay, of course, taking us to those exact same places. And the devs on this project do use a pretty unique process to test out some of the content with Skyrim Together, the Skyrim multiplayer mod. So they load up Illiac Bay onto a multiplayer server to explore some of the newly implemented areas together and spot issues, with even more work being done in Hammerfell, as now over a dozen quests have been implemented and many locations like forts, caves, or ruins are fully explorable, with content being populated. And overall, looking at Beyond Skyrim, it really showcases how distinct and unique some of the content being created by these teams are. Beyond all of that, there was more as a part of Croatia ModCon 2025, other projects like Lordbound or Tamriel Rebuilt and Project Tamriel were featured, those last two being Skyrim at the time of Morrowind, which is a really cool and unique mod, but beyond the scope of this video. And hey, if you're interested in Lordbound, get subscribed. This is a recently released DLC-sized mod for Skyrim that I will be covering.